I don't usually type up notes, as most of you know that have seen me speak. I just kind of, for better or worse, talk from the hip. But last time Ed and I did a presentation together, we had an hour to speak, and I took 55 minutes of that hour. I know most of you thinking it was probably the other way around, but so bear with me while I sort of go back and forth between my notes and what I have to say today. But I'm excited to provide you all an update on where we stand with respect to transportation issues in Middle Tennessee. First, I'll talk a little bit about who the MPO is and get into sort of giving an overview of all the accomplishments that this region's been able to make over the past couple of years. The MPO, as most of you know, the Nashville Area MPO is the lead transportation policy, planning, and programming agency for over 2,800 square miles and more than 1.5 million people throughout parts of 7 counties in Middle Tennessee. And we work very closely with the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Clarksville Urbanized Area Metropolitan Planning Organization to coordinate efforts across the entire 10-county region that we recognize today. We're directed by city and county mayors throughout those 7 counties that I referred to. Mayor Dean is our current chair. Mayor Rogers Anderson down in Williamson County is our current vice chair. Mayor Ernest Burgess was a great immediate past chair for the region. But those city and county mayors ultimately facilitate a regional partnership among federal, state, and local agencies, transit agencies, the business community, and citizens across the area for the primary purpose to develop and maintain a regional long-range plan for transportation in a way that serves to contribute to ongoing efforts related to land use, economic development, the environment, safety, security, and health. Over the past few years, the MPO has worked with a broad-based coalition to develop a new transportation plan that would look ahead to the year 2035 and forecast future growth and development, evaluate the transportation system's ability to meet increased demand as a result of that development, and to estimate future federal and state revenues to pay for the improvements that we think we need to make in order to accommodate that growth. And ultimately set policy and make decisions about what projects the region should fund over the next 25 years. That effort culminated in December of last year when mayors from across the region adopted the 2035 Regional Transportation Plan. That plan rests on a perspective that transportation infrastructure is more than just about improving mobility, that it's also a way to assist in the development of a place, whether it be a small community or a large region, in a way that is healthier, more livable, sustainable, and prosperous. It also recognizes the need to understand the specific needs of an increasingly diverse population and the shifts that we're seeing in the marketplace that are driving growth and development. And it realizes that for our regional economy to stay strong, we must be honest about what's right for our region, particularly given the age of decreasing state, federal, and local budgets. So the plan, as adopted in December, lays out a 3-pronged strategy to invest nearly $6 billion in anticipated revenues over the next 25 years into the region's transportation system as it absorbs close to another million people, as it absorbs a significant increase in vehicle miles traveled. The first of these major strategies contained in this plan revolves around the idea of creating a bold new vision for mass transit. And the plan does that. It lays out a long-term vision for what we mean when we say Middle Tennessee wants to build and modernize our existing mass transit system. It doesn't define all the specifics, but it gets us headed in the right direction. But to help guide the expansion of our existing transportation system in preparation for increasing competitive global economy and to more proactively address the growing concerns about health of our people and our environment, worsening congestion, and the sprawling land development pattern that's began to encroach upon our area's cherished rural countryside. The second major strategy of the plan is to support active transportation and the development of local communities to help complete our streets, improve connectivity between people and places within the urbanizing area of the region, foster healthier activity for the region's citizens, and to serve as the backbone of investments in mass transit. And the third major strategy is to preserve and enhance strategic roadway corridors throughout the entire region with a focus on repairing an aging roadway and bridge network to ensure the safety and security of the traveling public with an emphasis on using technology to make the roadway corridors more efficient and ready for the vehicle fleet of the 21st century. Still, even with a sound plan for the future, successful implementation of the proposed improvements will require significant effort to address a variety of challenges. One being how to continue to pay for transportation infrastructure. Resources are strained at all levels of government. The primary revenue source for transportation funding, that being the gas tax, hasn't kept up with the growth in costs and is really sort of nearing the end of its useful life as our vehicles turn to alternative fuels and higher efficiencies. Second, for our transit vision to become a reality, the region will need to focus on identifying a source of dedicated funding for transit to help leverage federal funds and to support the long-term viability of those systems. Most metro regions of our size have long since taken that step, and that's really sort of what's immediately before us with respect to implementing our vision for mass transit. And finally, though progress has been made in recent years, we must continue to do more to think more comprehensively about growth so that our transportation decisions make sense when paired with our decisions for land use and economic development, open space preservation, and investments in other aspects of our infrastructure.
Okay. Jump right in, the clock is running. I too, knowing I would follow Michael, wrote mine, but we will proceed now, seriously. We have 3 points. We are here, we have work to do, let's get started. You ready?
I'm ready.
As we've heard, transportation is one of the 6 pillars of our regional future. As Michael and others have described, the bold new vision for transit is a part of that transportation pillar. That bold new vision for transit is important, it's critical, but the real work begins as we try to turn that vision into a reality. And that's what led to the creation of the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee. I think we heard both Governor Hickenlooper and Allen talk about the importance of putting meaning to actions through a vision that is internalized. As we did learn in Denver, as was mentioned earlier with Mayor Dean and Burt and others, plans and visions do need to be woven into a fabric of regional interests involving elected officials, the private sector, institutional and nonprofit leaders, and citizens who live and work and play in the region every single day. At this very event in 2009, we challenged ourselves to make that a reality, to begin to weave that fabric. Number 1 was the Mayor's Caucus. Michael and others have mentioned that. I think clearly Mayor Graves and Mayor Dean have been extremely important with their colleagues who are here today in making the Mayor's Caucus a critical element of the fabric of our region. I would simply say that 2 ingredients of the Mayor's Caucus, trust, and that can't be overestimated, trust between the mayors and clear communication have been a part of it. Secondly, we pledged here in 2009 to create the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee, which is now in existence, an entity that could help connect as a part of our fabric business, elected officials, institutions, organizations, citizens with a common goal. And think of these words, I think they are critical to what we are doing, to understand and share the value of a bold new vision for mass transit to our economy, to our environment, and to the sustainable quality of our daily lives across Middle Tennessee. And I think Allen developed that sense of sustainability very effectively. And then to connect this understanding of the value of mass transit to those who will ultimately make the decisions that will have to be made and are in our future, including, as Michael pointed out, including creative and sustainable sources of dedicated funding for mass transit. And if you heard Governor Hickenlooper, you know how important that was in the development of the transit strategies for the Denver area. Now in its 2nd year of existence, the Transit Alliance, with a strong board of 35 people, and many of you are here today, from all 10 counties of Middle Tennessee, and over 600 persons that are connected to the Alliance in various ways, are now involved and pledged to be a part of that effort, of carrying out that vision. These individuals, we, hopefully all of us, recognize that transportation choices will be different than the past. It's not simply cars versus buses. Most of us feel in our hearts that that future will be different, that the vision for mass transit makes sense, and it's our job in the Transit Alliance and with all of us in our region to help convey that sensibility and the components of that kind of vision into actions that our elected officials, who will eventually be called upon to make this a reality, that they can follow. Finally, a very specific strategy that we have adopted, we talked about it last year at the Transit Alliance, is to create a Transit Academy, some institutional way to help us create a better understanding of this bold new vision, talk in terms that make sense to our neighbors, to our officials, to our colleagues about this. And so we have announced the creation, and many of you have heard this, but if you haven't, consider this the official announcement, the Citizen Leadership Academy for Transit. Modeled, and we talked with Governor Hickenlooper a little earlier, and he was excited. We did what he said. We took their idea and made it better. It's modeled on the Denver Transit Academy, and it will be a partnership between the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee and the just announced Nelson and Sue Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership at Lipscomb University. The simple goal will be, at the end of calendar year 2012, there will be over 200 people, hopefully many of you, who will have been through probably a 7-session series, 2 hours each, in groups of 30. By the end of 2012, some 200 people will have had the experience of the Transit Academy and will be in a position to talk with friends and neighbors and leaders in their counties and in their towns about this bold new vision for transit in a way that we've heard about today, in a way we'll hear more about as we go forward. This is, for some, a creative form of adult learning. It's a way to support each other. It's a way to make complicated things very, very understandable. But most importantly, this process will provide our elected officials with support for the kinds of values and actions that we know here are important in the future of our region. And it's our job to convey that feeling to our friends and neighbors who have those same kinds of feelings. The pilot class is currently being selected. Many of the mayors in this room have nominated those class members, and some of you are here. And we will learn from that first pilot, and then we will begin the process, and you'll hear more about it. Thank you.
Ed, Michael, thank you so much. Great ideas really don't take that long to be communicated when you focus on it. Mr. Folks?
Yes, Bridget and I would like to briefly talk to you about land use, quality growth, and sustainable development here in Middle Tennessee. At the conclusion of our 203 CRT Summit and follow-up to the report to the region vision scenarios, we found a need for tools to educate and assist our region in approaches to quality growth and sustainable development. We organized steering committee teams, research regions that had produced successful planning tools. That's where we found Envision Utah. And we modeled our implementation tools like theirs. And this is all on our Cumberland Region Tomorrow website, so you're welcome to go there and look at it. Many of you have already seen it and are utilizing it today. We prepared the toolbox, the first of its kind in Tennessee, to assist our 10-county region with tools they could use to support adoption of best practices, best professional practices in community development, comprehensive planning, community investment and design, strategic open space conservation, and in the integration of land use and transportation planning to help guide infrastructure. The preparation of the CRT Quality Growth Toolbox program tapped the visions of local public and private sector leaders interested in shaping their communities by preparing quality growth plans. So once engaged, the elected and private citizen leadership throughout our region began to discuss and demand quality growth and sustainable development practices, and that they be action be taken. Well, action was taken. The professional planning and design community stepped forward to assist in a number of pilot programs, again, for many of you in this room. Bridget and I are going to share some of the deliverables we've produced in the last 5 years, and some specific sort of boots on the ground projects, accomplishments, and successes. So, with a toolbox in hand, we created and provided short-term quality growth community outreach and education presentations to groups in all the different 10 counties. So again, we educated. We organized technical assistant providers from our design community and state agencies, nonprofit communities around each topic area, and with their help, assisted in pilot communities to determine the next steps that they needed toward development of their comprehensive plans. Trained professional quality group toolbox trainers, we trained trainers to go out into the community from planners, design, and nonprofit communities, and delivered 4-hour quality growth toolbox training sessions to local planning commission staff and members, elected city officials, county officials, local builders, developers, realtors, bankers, architects, engineers, lawyers, citizen groups, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that matches up with what we heard this morning from Alan. And in partnership with AI Middle Tennessee and the University of Tennessee Institute for Public Service and CTAS, we organized a continued education program that supported educational requirements from these different groups. We developed and delivered hour-long county-level rollout presentations that supported our Toolbox project in each of the pilot communities. And we've evaluated what's good, what's bad in our quality growth pilot projects to determine what additional training and resources and technical assistance is needed. So all of this is ongoing. The educational assistant work we're doing is ongoing. Our support of our local project co-chairs and community teams in each of the different areas is ongoing as well. Can we get the slide up now?
Certainly.
Now, it's impressive to look at this map and see that 9 out of 10 of our counties have active municipal inter-county lead comprehensive plans in progress or in place. It's also exciting to see how many are well on the way toward implementation. As many of the lead communities work on implementation, they're identifying funding through new and existing funding sources at the local, regional, state, and national level, and tapping new sources of technical assistance and resources to aid them in the efforts. So, going forward, what are some of these resources? Planning, hopefully there's a project planning and design assistance that communities can get through the MPOs and TDOT. Community design assistance through the University of Tennessee School of Architecture and Design. AI Middle Tennessee and other design community partners are also available to assist. USDA rural development grants, Bridget may talk to you about momentarily, for local comprehensive planning was utilized in Murray County. Of course, the Department of Transportation, EPA, and HUD, federal grants, we're going to hear from them later in this presentation. There are some other things that can be done, and that's by the CRT. We can help organize community vision design workshops, reinvesting in towns and community workshops, conserving land, water, cultural, natural resources workshops. So the region is moving. To date, we have a lot of active quality growth projects, and I'd like for Bridget to talk a little bit about them.
Thank you, Marion, and thank you, Alan Matheson, again, for your leadership and our ability to follow your great work in Envision Utah. I'm delighted to give a quick update of our Middle Tennessee version of Envision Utah's demonstration projects, both urban and rural. And I'm also excited to report that we have a parallel regional corridor project to your Mountain View corridor. It's the 109 corridor, where many municipalities are working to look at that corridor to sync their local land use plans. And TDOT, Gresham Smith Partners, a lot of experts in the design and transportation engineering community are helping with that. As you look at this map, let's just walk through our region. We look over at Cheatham County, at Kingston Springs, which is one of our first pilot toolbox communities. They're well into implementation after their AIA-led visioning and design workshop. And with TDOT's help, they have a good corridor design for their interstate exchange that's going to recreate the entryway to that community. Davidson County, I wish Rick Bernhardt were here, because he and the partners in this community have created a community character manual. They have a major street plan, and they've dwelled down to create local community plans that are really actually transforming Nashville, Davidson County as we speak. We're learning from them across the region. Down in Dixon, they've got an excellent downtown redevelopment plan going. If you hadn't been there, you should check it out. And a lot of community support around that. Down in Murray County, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, my home, but our Murray County Comprehensive Quality Growth Plan was one of the first, and they're well underway in developing county and local municipal implementation plans I'll talk about in a minute. Over in Montgomery County, there's been an exciting 2040 vision plan for that community, Clarksville, when they grow to be at 250,000 people by that point in time. Robertson County will begin its comprehensive plan this year. Mayor Bradley's here. They were one of our first pilot communities, and they're going to build on the MPO Tri-County study and the great work that's been done in Sumner County, who has completed a countywide comprehensive plan along with Gallatin, White House, and Hendersonville to really update their land use platform that will provide a good basis for future transit investments. Rutherford County's completed a comp plan. Murfreesboro's done some great work. Williamson County has been our leader. They had a Franklin plan we gave an award to in 2003, and then the Williamson County plan has been one that Joe Horns helped us take across the region to learn about in the other communities. And then finally, Wilson County, Lebanon was a pilot project. You see them highlighted. They received AIA Blueprint 150 design assistance as one of our pilot communities, our demonstration communities, and they're well underway in looking at how they can maximize the transit service through the Music City SAR through local improvements, not only in the core of Lebanon, but also Tennessee's first new TOD project that's going to maximize that transit corridor out in halfway between Nashville and Lebanon. So again, lots of great work going. Thank you, leaders at the government level, the private sector level, the design community that stepped up. And now just a little bit of news, breaking news for two of our most recent communities that are making progress. Down in Murray County, we're getting a lot of growth from 840. That comprehensive planning project led by the county pulled together leaders from Spring Hill, Columbia, and Mount Pleasant. I told our chairs that was a United Nations award because we needed to get everybody going on that. But I've got leaders from Columbia and Spring Hill today, and Spring Hill leaders are on the front row. They're getting ready to adopt their comprehensive plan this year. That's going to position that community that's a part of Rutherford, Williamson, and Murray County to handle the rapid growth that they've seen. I drive through it every day. And then Columbia's here, and I want to compliment them. They adopted their comp plan about a year and a half ago, and they're well underway in implementing it through form-based codes, but they were one of two communities in the state to receive a HUD Challenge Grant. Thanks, Alan. And they are well underway in implementing a new growth and development vision and action for that community. So again, thanks to all of you for your leadership, and we're making great progress again, and we will continue to help work with you in partnership with other groups to support your efforts.
So what are the next steps in our region? To begin, there are some additional quality growth toolboxes tools that we propose in the future CRT toolbox, which will include reinvestment readiness, transit-oriented development, farmland and open space conservation strategies, and economic revitalization planning for existing communities. So you can see guiding quality sustainable growth in our region is a process that requires continuous community involvement and action, as well as collaboration. Like Bridget, in conclusion, I'd like to thank all of our partners and community leaders that have stepped up to participate in this quality growth initiative that we believe we're advancing in our 10-county region of Middle Tennessee. Thank you.
Mary and Bridget, that's a great report. We thank you for that. Next is the infrastructure report from, and we'll start with Mr. Everett Cowan.
Okay, I'd like to add my thanks to all of you for being here to support this important regional forum. I have with me today to help on this topic of infrastructure Scott Potter, who is Director of Metro Water Services. I'm going to make some kind of general opening remarks about this broad topic, and then Scott's going to focus in on water and wastewater issues. You know, infrastructure encompasses all of the support systems necessary for a society to function. It's such a broad topic that there's really no hope of covering all of that information in the 6 minutes that I'm sworn to get finished in. It's a broad topic, and suffice it to say that plans for all elements of infrastructure need to be in place to allow infrastructure to grow in sync with the region. This requires that all of the various municipalities, counties, agencies, utility districts, and other infrastructure providers develop and maintain short and long-range plans that are consistent with the local and regional land use and growth plans that Bridget discussed. For the purposes of this discussion, we're just going to focus on the component of infrastructure covered by utilities, or as Bridget likes to call it, pumps, pipes, and wires. Fix it first. That's an important mantra for anybody in the utility provision business. You have to have the myriad of pipes, pumps, and wires operating in good condition and within their service life. Keeping these systems operating properly has got to be that top priority before you can address expansion and growth of infrastructure. A recent article in Williamson AM that I happened to pick up as I was getting prepared for this session stated that residents in Spring Hill may soon be asked to pay even more for water when they're partly through 3 years' worth of water and rate sewer increases. This may be needed to ensure that water will be available in the future, according to a study by Duck River Development Agency. This is just one example of the issues we face in providing adequate infrastructure service throughout the 10-county region. There's a highly complex system of utilities in this region. With just considering water alone, there are 37 providers of water operating in this 10-county region. Then on top of that, you've got all the other utilities, gas, electric, telephone, and cable. So it's a huge challenge to get the various components of this multifaceted system to work together for the good of the region, but it is imperative that we do so. To illustrate how much effort is underway to maintain or expand our utility systems, the Greater Nashville Regional Council has compiled a summary of the work that's either in concept, planning, design, or construction stages at this time. The grand total is over $3 billion worth of construction. Now that puts a great strain on the funding mechanisms that are in place and requires cooperation and involvement by federal, state, and local governments, plus the users through their utility bills. I'm not going to read through every one of the items on that list, but you can see that at the top of the list is water and wastewater at $1.8 billion, and that out of that total of 3.02, so that's like 60% of the total. Another study I wanted to share with you is a report card that was prepared for the it was actually prepared on a national basis, but separated out on a state-by-state basis, prepared by the American Society of Civil Engineers. And it gives grades for each of the infrastructure components. And you can see the grades there. It's a D, a C, a B minus, C, D, and C. Now, I don't know about y'all, but if I brought those kind of grades home to my mom and dad back when I was in school, they would have been not too happy with me. So we've got to do better, and we've got to get better. Now, you know, even in some of the areas where it looks pretty good, like a B with respect to bridges, there's 20,000 bridges in Tennessee, but about 3,800 of them are structurally deficient or functionally obsolete. So that's a good percentage, but it's still not very good to have almost 4,000 bridges out there that might be unsafe or dysfunctional. Moving on to water and wastewater. Again, in the interest of time, we're going to focus our attention on this, and since 60% of the dollars in the region are invested in that particular utility. ASCE stated that the recent drought and other challenges encourage systems to merge, take regional approaches to water supply issues, and collaborate on compliance issues and the new rules. In Tennessee, we've got 3 cities, and Nashville being one, and Clarksville, where we have combined sewers, that is sanitary and wastewater carried in the same pipe. Permits require that when these type sewers overflow, that monitoring must be undertaken and corrective action taken when overflows become excessive. Now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Scott Potter, as I said, director of the largest water provider in the region. He'll give us an update on the issues facing Metro and solutions plan to maintain the existing systems and to accommodate anticipated growth in the region.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to talk about, I've got 4 points I want to briefly talk about. Everett mentioned the first one, and it is always number one in infrastructure improvement and capital construction is directly related to the rate capacity in your rate base. And mildly put, that's how much are people willing to pay? Rate increases are exciting times for water and wastewater utilities. Our political leaders are reticent to overcharge people for water and sewer service. But the question is, what's it worth to a public to have the ability to turn on a magic tap and have clean water come out? And what is it worth you to have your human waste disappear? It's not magic, by the way. It costs a lot of money. But the ability to pay for it is going to be the key to any kind of infrastructure improvement or infrastructure construction for a developing region. The second point I want to make is that future development is always going to be fundamentally about sewer availability and sewer capacity. If you don't have sewer capacity, generally speaking, you're not going to have development, because land right now, and I think into the future, is going to be too valuable to do septic, especially on residential development. So when people want to develop land or redevelop, they're going to look for sewer capacity. EPA is going to regulate that very closely, because sewer capacity is going to be directly related to how much you overflow an aging sewer system. If you have an exceedance of capacity, you're going to have sanitary sewer overflows, and that's not a good thing from a public health perspective. And EPA, and perhaps TDEC or whatever the local regulator is going to be, they're always going to have in their toolbox, if the utility doesn't comply with federal regulation, they've got the hammer to do a sewer moratorium. And if you have a moratorium on connection, then obviously you don't have growth. So sewer capacity and sewer availability is something that's always going to be extraordinarily important in a developing region. The third point, and this is an economic development issue, is that water availability, water quality, and water stability is going to be key to any kind of a business model in a business deciding to relocate to a city. Nashville is really fortunate to have an abundant water supply, high water quality in the Cumberland River, a lot of water in the Cumberland River. Every once in a while there's too much water in the Cumberland River. But it's good to have that kind of stable water source. Now that you've got the water that's available, you have to be able to deliver it. And especially in today's manufacturing environment, and I think Clarksville has a perfect example of what they're doing in the semiconductor industry, you can't just send average water into a high quality manufacturing operation. You have to send really, really good quality water to that manufacturing facility, and you have to demonstrate to the people who want to build that facility that you can do it. Historically, if you go back into the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the large transmission mains in a city were located in the urban core, and if people wanted to use that for manufacturing now, sometimes that land's not available for redevelopment or reuse for a variety of reasons. So if it's not available for redevelopment or reuse in manufacturing, you have to get the water to the new site. And to do that takes infrastructure, and it's very expensive to build transmission, which is generally speaking 16-inch pipes or larger, from here to there. So it's expensive to build it, and it's also expensive and complicated to get the easements available to transport it. So that's something that people have to really work on to vision the use of land in a city's non-traditional manufacturing areas. The fourth thing I want to talk about is, we've all heard this over and over and over, but the present infrastructure in Nashville, generally speaking, cities east of the Mississippi River, is old. The example I always use is that our elegant and beautiful water treatment facility that's really, really old has 2 valves in it in the basement on the 5th level that were manufactured in 1873. They still work, and if they don't work, we don't have half the water for the city of Nashville. So that means that we've got aging infrastructure. That's demonstrative of the extreme age, in some cases, of our infrastructure that we have to replace. To build additional capacity is expensive, and that means if you want to build more water plants, more wastewater plants, and that's going to take away from your available capacity to do pipe replacement, pump replacement, things like that. So you have to identify what's more important to you. And on the sewer side, especially at the early part of the 20th century, the infrastructure put in the ground at the time was high tech. It was brick and it was clay pipe. That's shattering now. So you're in a position where you have to replace really, really old stuff. My final point is on the stormwater side, which is the new frontier. That's infrastructure that's not traditional. It has to be maintained, and it has to be, the regulatory environment is getting very complicated, and that's an expense on infrastructure that most cities haven't anticipated.
Let me make one final comment, kind of sum up what Scott and I have had to say. Growth obviously requires infrastructure, and infrastructure is expensive. So Middle Tennessee can work together to understand the true cost of providing adequate infrastructure and the essential services provided through these networks, through maintenance of what we have and the cost of new infrastructure to support the growth that our region will undoubtedly see in the coming years. Thank you.
Guys, thank you. It always amazes me how complex these issues are, particularly if you're planning in silos. It's important that we find ways to communicate and coordinate these planning issues and our vision for the future so that we spend less money, have more efficiency, and we get better products. This is a great thing, guys. Thank you. Next is the Open Space and Conservation Panel. We've got Mr. Darwin Newton and Mr. Julian Bibb.
Thank you, Gary. As far as open space conservation is concerned, my comments will relate to the Rural Issues Committee that has just been formed with Cumberland Region tomorrow. This committee was established to provide direction and support for an increasing request to Cumberland Region tomorrow to use its expertise in growth planning as it relates to rural conservation, design and development issues and opportunities. Emphasis will be placed on bringing this region's rural communities into growth and sustainable planning efforts that will mesh rural and urban areas. At the same time, it will enhance the quality and integrity of rural life in these areas. The end goal of this committee will be to help rural and urban areas throughout the 10-county region complement and strengthen each other respectively. Our 10-county region, prior to the downturn in the economy and even over the past few years, has shown job growth and land development. This places pressure on our region's natural resource base, and if not careful, we overlook the effects of regional growth on the cumulative effect of land conversion from open space to commercial and residential uses. The objectives of this committee are to utilize a cadre of members that have extensive knowledge in rural issues and contacts, create collaborative relationships with key partners, increase awareness of rural issues and opportunities throughout our 10-county region, provide tools and resources that address these rural issues and opportunities, and support our region's key issue of open space conservation. We will increase the capacity to provide training and technical assistance to our key partners and implement new rural tools and issues that will increase our pilot growth through these studies. As a lead into these next couple of slides, I want to say just a little bit about the agriculture in our region here. All facets of agriculture remain a strategic and significant sector in the 10-county region of our state and the American economy. With the increasing world population and the increased number of people to feed, food and production has never been more critical. Farming is no longer a standalone economy. Active farm families depend on a healthy and local and regional economy for their very survival of the land. This next slide that talks and shows you some information about the agriculture in Robertson County may be a little busy in words and hard to read the pie chart, but what I want to emphasize to you is that in 2008, and you look at the total agricultural and forestry outputs, and that's a little different from the cash dollar value that you get from crops, but that dollar figure just for Robertson County was over $500 million in outputs. That's a fairly large amount for any county in Middle Tennessee. And if you go to the next slide where we talk about the significance of agriculture to the region and the state in our 10-county region, we have over $10 billion in 2008 that came directly from total agriculture and forestry outputs. So it is a very significant part of our region. when we talk about agriculture itself. Some of the areas of rural development that we'll be assisting with are the support and identification and utilization of prime farmland soils and other soils of cropland significance, our pasture and hay lands, forestry and woodland products, air and water quality, wildlife habitat, our natural resource base. All of these is to support the agricultural economy in the region's land-based health and wealth. As a region, we are beginning, and work is underway in many counties to address these rural issues. There are notable projects that have been completed and new rural issues initiatives that are underway. Some of these projects are the Sumner County Comprehensive Plan, which has a great focus on open space, the Robertson County Comprehensive Plan, which is designed to preserve and enhance the agricultural economy, and Nashville's Open Space Plan, just recently released. As the committee continues through this year and next, we will plan several actions and deliverables. We will update and release an updated 2011 3.4 version of the Cumberland Region Tomorrow GIS Greenprint tool for quality growth as it expands its use through state agencies and partners. And as you can see, the 30 layers of data sets of information comprise our current Greenprint, and the data is assimilated from a wide variety of federal, state, and local entities. The use of the Greenprint for the analyzing of data, the setting of priorities, and the balancing of projects with conservation concerns. We intend to do this by providing training and technical assistance to agency staffs and community leaders, support pilot projects using the Greenprint tool for quality growth, and respond to requests for leadership in the development of new open space, farmland, and natural resources, strategies, tools, and resources, much like the Sumner County Open Space Comprehensive Plan case study that has been completed. And with this, you can see that our work is much and our goals are high, and I'll turn it over to Julian.
Thank you, Darwin. It's great to be back with you again this year. Last year, this time, Jeannie Nelson of the Land Trust for Tennessee and I made a short presentation about how open space conservation fits into the global regional planning for the sustaining high quality of life, recreational values, and improved health and safety in communities. And what a year it has been since we were here last year, because during that period of time, we've been able actually to witness the development of a model plan for a community that hopefully will be a model for the entire region. When you think about open space conservation, it is a critical element to all of us in our economic and cultural resources, the maintenance of the integrity of our historic spaces, recreation, and health. The first peoples in Middle Tennessee were here because of our beautiful landscapes, our soils, our rivers, our natural resources. And when settlers came, I love that slide that Vision Utah had. When settlers came, they came for the same thing: rivers, natural resources. And when we interview companies who are coming to Middle Tennessee today, why are they coming? One of the chief reasons, there are more than just one reason that they're coming, but one of the chief reasons is our quality of life, the value we place on our open space, the sense of place and community that's found here. That's what makes all of us so happy about being able to live and work in Middle Tennessee. Those elements create a model for success, both in quality of life and in terms of our economy. The CRT has been working with the Land Trust for Tennessee, and there is a quality growth toolbox that has been developed. It's on the website, and it identifies lands for conservation, preservation. It identifies the principles of regional and local planning and strategic conservation efforts. Those are things that we have many partners in. It's led this effort recently in Nashville, has been led by the Land Trust for Middle Tennessee and Cumberland Region tomorrow, and Mayor Carl Dean, who stepped up and said, I'm going to put something in place that's great for this community. But there are also plenty of other partners. There are partners in the TWRA with wild wetlands and habitats, TDEC and state parks, greenways and natural heritage areas, and for most of you sitting in this room who are involved in any aspect of local governments, counties and cities, you all have been working within your communities to develop this concept and to make the quality of life in your community better. The basis for that successful implementation can be local, but the impact can be greater through regional planning. The Nashville Plan, Nashville Naturally Plan, which was just announced last month, sets out a vision for how the conservation of strategic natural and cultural resources strengthens Nashville's competitive advantage in other communities. We heard the governor from Colorado talk about that. We've heard Envision Utah talk about it, and we've seen it in our own recruitment of business. Nashville Naturally is an ongoing public-private partnership between Mayor Dean's office, Davidson County government, and the Land Trust for Tennessee. The planning process is distilled into 3 phases. Initially, an inventory of what natural and cultural resources there are located within the boundaries of Davidson County, using GIS and other governmental plans and help. The second was a prioritization of those resources, which was gained through knowledge from our government officials, but also through substantial public input. And the third was the implementation of the plan with specific goals and policy recommendations with involvement from both the public and private sectors. It was an incredible coming together of this community. Many of you here in this room participated in that and made it the success that it was. The vision for Nashville is inspiring. It's, most of you know it by the four corners, 9 bends and a heart of green. The 4 corners being the 4 corners of Davidson County, 4 anchor park preserves, conserved land ideally prioritized for farming uses and wildlife areas. In each of the 9 bends of the Cumberland River, and also focusing on greening the downtown area. The vision of that is to connect people to green infrastructure network, support urban and rural farming, connect wildlife and water networks, and preserve historic and iconic resources. By 2035, the goal is to protect over 22,000 additional acres of land within these themes and toward this vision. The Davidson County Plan is a working model that can be used to promote regional land and open space conservation. The notion that we can all work together is clearly affected by our own natural resources. When you think about what crosses the line of our counties, there are historic trails. There's the Highland Rim, the Cumberland River, the Natchez Trace, the Harpeth River. All of these cross throughout our communities, and by planning and working together to develop a regional open space plan, using the Nashville Plan as a model, we can achieve great things for our communities and for our community in whole. We're blessed with these natural resources. It's an exciting time to be involved in this effort, and I am delighted CRT and those of you in the audience have so wholeheartedly supported this effort. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gary.
Can we give that open space plan a hand along with cooperation with the Mayor Dean's office? That was great. That was discussed here some last year. Progress is being made, and it's really, I'm just pleased to see that cooperation, Julian, and the things that got accomplished. Air and water quality and quantity, Mr. Larry McElroy and Commissioner Martineau.
Thank you, Gary. I am very concerned about some of the things I hear about growth in this region. I happen to not be as optimistic about available water supply as some people. Well, I'm sure all of you have seen that 3% of our water is only available. And in this, we have been so blessed in this region that we have had plenty of water. But when you look at some of the slides I want you to look at, well, where did it go? Bridget, where did it go?
It's up there. That's your next one.
All right, there it is. I hope that you can identify Davidson County and Nashville in 1980 and in 90. This is housing density. Look what it is in 2010. Look what it's projected to be in 2020 and in 2030. That's a lot of people. I happen to manage one of the fastest growing utilities in Middle Tennessee. I know what growth can do to a water system. It's amazing what it can do. TDEC. Lee Keck provided me this slide. TDEC, long time ago, has recognized some of the counties in Middle Tennessee that have inadequate water supplies. The drought we had 2 or 3 years ago proved that there are some inadequate water supplies in Middle Tennessee. I don't care whether it's inadequate rainfall that creates a shortage or it's additional consumption that creates extra demand. It's still the same amount of water. Cumberland River. Corps of Engineers controls most, if not all, the Cumberland River. Many water systems in the Middle Tennessee area have storage contracts with the Corps of Engineers. The 4 water systems in Rutherford County, Smyrna, Murfreesboro, Laverne, and Consolidated Utility, have had some recent meetings with the Corps of Engineers telling us of an impending new hydraulic model that they will be applying to Percy Priest Lake. This new model says that in a dry year like we had a few years ago, our water supply will be 50% of what we thought we had. CUD's contract is for 16 million gallons a day. Under the new model, we won't have 16 million gallons a day, but we'll have 8. That's a problem. Also, in some conversations with the Corps, and we're talking about Wolf Creek Dam, which is Lake Cumberland, and Center Hill Dam, and the repairs that are going on there, there is some indication that when the dams are repaired, the lakes may not be taken back to their original design capacity. That will have an adverse impact on all the water systems east of Nashville. The power of 10 can't create new water. The power of 10 in the 10-county region can help us with the Corps because we're going to need some help. This is an adverse impact on all water systems in Middle Tennessee, in my opinion. We can take all the technology there is, and we can clean up all the water and all the rivers, and we can make safe drinking water out of it. We can take wastewater that we've all generated, clean it up, and put it back into the rivers. But there is not a place in the world that a plant has been built that takes hydrogen and oxygen and makes water. There is no new water. The water that fell last week and the water that will fall tonight has been here before. It will be here again. How we use it will determine the future of this region. I won't read the bottom of that, but down at the bottom, this too came from TDEC. Down at the bottom many years ago, it talks about a water plan for Tennessee. We must not deny that we must come up with a water plan for this region. When God created this earth, He created a natural drainage basin for the Cumberland River, and we're not going to change it. It's how we use what we have that will determine the future of this region. Thank you.
I'm going to talk a little bit about air quality issues and sort of why that's important in terms of our regional development in Middle Tennessee and Tennessee writ large. First, why, first of all, it's a health issue. Obviously, you're in attracting people to live in an area, you want to have healthy air quality, public health issue in terms of making it attractive to live, but it's also very much an economic development issue. You really significantly limit your options for economic development if your area is not meeting air quality standards. If ozone for Middle Tennessee is the ambient air quality standard of most concern for us historically, you won't get the next Nissan plant in Smyrna or the next Bridgestone plant in Laverne if you're not meeting air quality standards. It's one of the first questions that businesses looking to build new manufacturing facilities will ask in that checklist of priorities is the area we're looking to site a facility, potential site for a facility meeting ambient air quality standards, because it really limits your option. So that's sort of why it's important in looking at how we're going to develop the region from an economic development standpoint and do that affirmatively. Now, contrary to what you may have read in newspapers over time, one thing I want to make clear is our air quality is cleaner today than it's ever been since the 1970s, really, in the passage of the Clean Air Act. We have made significant reductions, and that's done. We've done that at a time where we've grown the economy, grown our region, increased vehicle miles traveled substantially, significant population growth, and significant economic development. And that's been as a result of a number of national, state, and local measures, from cleaner vehicles to cleaner fuels to reductions on stationary sources to smaller changes in behavior from small engines, lawnmower engines, and things like that have made a difference. But the real message is we have to do that in a partnership, and we have to look at all aspects of where the emissions come from in trying to improve air quality, and changes can be made both at the national level, federal level, state level, and regional level. The other thing it's important to really recognize as we look at this and why a summit like this is important in looking at the 10-county region is air quality knows no political boundaries. It doesn't stop. Something generated in Davidson County doesn't stop at the county line. We certainly obviously have a lot of vehicle traffic crossing county lines on a daily basis, so we can't look and do this parochially, county by county, and look at air quality on a very narrow. We have to look at it regionally across the state and through the state and even the southeast region. Now, the good news, as I said, air quality is improved, but the challenges are still ahead. And this gives you a little pictorial sort of demonstration of our air quality improvements. And if you went back into the 1990s, to the far left, that red arrow of the sort of average air quality measurements in the area would be even higher. The old standard was 120 parts per million. It's now at 75 parts per million. And EPA this summer is going to lower that standard to probably between 65 and 70 parts per billion. So we have challenges ahead despite the dramatic improvements. And if you went back to the early 90s, this chart, this is a statewide, but this region matches these kind of data points. If you went back to the 120 parts per million, our monitors, our air quality monitors, are almost 50% reduction in our highest levels of ozone in the area. So that's a dramatic improvement given the vehicle miles traveled and the growth in the region. But as I said, the standard is going to go down even further, so that sets forth challenges for us ahead. Well, how do we meet those challenges? We have a number of different ways that you can reduce emissions. And it's not just, as some people think, the largest industrial facilities that contribute to the problem. It comes from power plants and industrial sources, yes. Vehicles, mobile sources, both on-road and off-road vehicles, are significant contributors. So things that we've done in the past and need to continue to do and enhance, again, making reductions at those stationary sources, transportation planning, efficiency, cleaner fuels, cleaner vehicles, mass transportation, planning is all critically important into meeting future air quality standards. If you look at the pie, and NOx emissions for Middle Tennessee, so I'll focus on that, are really the issue. And this gives you a breakdown of the inventory. Again, as you can see, if you add up the non-road and on-road mobile sources, you have almost 2/3 of the emissions inventory. And I don't think most people realize that when you're looking at how to target those reductions. The green, light green, is the stationary source side of the house. 20 years ago, that pie was a much different mix, but that's where we are today. So our real challenge really is focused on transportation, both on and off-road, in terms of the greatest slice of the pie and where additional reductions we'll have to look at. This is for VOC emissions. It's a little different split, but in Middle Tennessee, while VOC emissions are important, they're really not what drive down ozone levels for our part of the region. So we have many challenges ahead. It's really going to take public awareness and education to make people understand that, in fact, their behavior affects air quality. It's not just the large industrial facilities. Vehicle miles traveled, the cleaner the fleet turnover is important to do that. I&M programs, things like that, all contribute to that. Investing in mass transportation and that infrastructure, and greater energy efficiency. Obviously, even the emissions from utilities, to the extent we reduce the demand for that energy, the better we can reduce that demand for electricity, while we also look for alternative sources instead of coal-fired power plants. So that's really my message, is we really have to look regionally. We have to look large, medium, and small size sources and individual behavior as we look to meet the air quality challenges to allow our area to continue to grow.
Thank you. We've heard about some potential problems and about some great progress in some other areas. We'd like to now, our final panel for the day, Mr. Burt Matthews and Commissioner Whitaker on economic competitiveness in our region.
Good afternoon. My name is Burt Matthews. The Chamber is all about jobs. Our job is to encourage economic competitiveness. And what do we mean by that? Well, we just finished a workforce study, and what that found is that by 2014, we're in this region going to be back to an unemployment rate of about, there we go, of about 4%. So by late 2013, 2014, we're back to where we were, which will be a great thing. 2019, we will have potentially 25,000 more jobs than we will have people to fill those jobs. 25,000 jobs for which we will be looking for employees to fill them. So economic competitiveness is about how we're going to be handling that particular challenge. Partnership 2020 is our visioning process, which we've just completed, and it is our program of work for the next 5 years. And what I've got is the strategic drivers up there for Partnership 2020, or how we're going to be handling or working at economic competitiveness. If you look across the bottom of that chart, you will see the regionalism. So at the Chamber, we understand regionalism cuts across all the area of work that we're going to be doing. If we talk about what we've heard today from Governor Hickenlooper, it's about how we are able to drive our land use, infrastructure, transit, and economic development across the region. We get it, and I know that everyone else here does also. And then finally, something that's interesting, and for any of y'all that want slides, just let me know, and I'll be glad to get these for you, is what are the target clusters of industries that we're going to be attracting? These are the industries that we know. They are part of where we are today. They're the ones that are located here. They're corporate headquarters operations, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, music, entertainment, and the creative fields, and supply chain management. These are the companies that we are going to be recruiting and attracting, but also they are the foundation of our current economic competitiveness, and these are the industries that we will be focused on expanding and growing where we are today. So that is our program of work on economic competitiveness. Thank you.
Well, one thing I'll tell you is I've learned a lot more sitting here listening to all of them than you'll probably ever get from listening to me, because I'm just so impressed with the group of people that are here and the body of work that's gone forward. And economic competitiveness, it's, Bert just did a great job of explaining what you're doing here with the Nashville Chamber and the Regional Chamber, but obviously Governor Haslam has been very focused also on job creation, and there are the traditional things he and Commissioner Bill Haggerty have worked on, the 6 clusters they've identified. In addition to those 3 clusters, they had also talked about, these are the other 3 that they would like us to get involved with ECD, and that would be the Department of Agriculture, which of course we've already heard is huge, but that aspect of agritourism. And also the Film Commission, Film and Music and Entertainment. They're place-based in the sense that they also, agritourism, certainly you can't have a wonderful place to go and enjoy the Pick Tennessee products or all the different types of agritourism that's out there if the places are being degraded. And also with, there's an aspect certainly with the Film Commission where they're looking for sites that are beautiful, and Tennessee just has millions of those. They're just wonderful. But when it gets specific to tourist development, and this is the thing that's near and dear to my heart, obviously, you have to be so careful, and I'll bring the cautionary tale to you, and I enjoyed so much what Alan had to say as he was talking about envisioning Utah and the process they went through. We have a culture and a heritage within Tennessee of people who are fiercely independent, and if you're gonna mess with what I do for a living, you better have a very good reason for doing it, and you better have a good solution for doing it. And that doesn't happen with you coming in and wagging a finger in my face and telling me what I'm supposed to do with my land or what I'm supposed to do with what I do with my attractions or as I develop a tourism entity. So I think, and I come very honestly to this because back in the 70s, and I've mentioned this to some of you in the room, when my kids were small and they watched Sesame Street and they decided to come into my bathroom and tell me to turn the water off while I was brushing my teeth, I told them to get out of my bathroom, you little communist. So I certainly understand Alan's, that one cartoon that he was talking about, the evolution. The evolution, and there's good news because I did turn the water off. It irritated me, but I did it because they had raised my consciousness. If they'd used that term, I would have slapped them. But they had actually given me the reason why it mattered. And that's why this process that happened in Envision Utah, the process that you're going through right now, is so crucial. I will tell you with the tourism industry, it certainly is. We have great tourism. Our big major urban hubs are wonderful, but we also have great opportunities throughout the state to develop those kinds of tourism, economic development, just that diversification that everybody needs. That won't happen on a place-based economy like tourism unless that place is a destination, and it will not be a destination unless it is a desirable place to go. Think about it in your own, when you start making vacation destination plans. Utah is one of the prettiest places. It is almost as pretty as Tennessee, but it is one of the prettiest places around. And I know my counterpart there is very active in making sure that there's sustainable practices happening within the hospitality and the tourism industry. We saw that in, I was challenged with this back in 2004, that I needed to make sure that as I went around and tried to encourage tourism in some of these beautiful areas, that I wasn't going to corrupt them. I felt like the big red T on my forehead. And I thought, that's very good, but how do I make sure that those folks have the right tools. Where are the best practices out there that we can share with people about how to sustain tourism? And that's where we came up with a Sustainable Tourism Summit. It was in honor of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park's 75th anniversary. We started plans in 2007 for that. It happened in 2008 in Knoxville. And I will tell you, at that time, Mayor Haslam was very instrumental in helping me get that planned. I had no idea he was going to run for governor, and he took so much time to make sure that I got into the right people that were going to let the entire community know this was a worthwhile venture. And I define sustainable tourism a little bit differently than National Geographic, in that it's sustaining the environment and the culture and heritage of an area, of a region, while at the same time sustaining the economic development and growth of that region through tourism. It's a both and. It cannot be an either or you will lose traction with the people that are the ones that would implement sustainability. And if you go around and look at how much, just how much water a hotel or a big resort uses, how much they impact the environment, they can either do it in a way that leaves our quality of life in a good way, or they can do it in a way where it degrades it. And why would you kill the goose that's laying the golden egg? It makes no sense. And if you approach people on a common sense basis and a quality of life basis, they begin to listen, they begin to nod, and even give you great ideas on how to accomplish it. So the economic competitiveness of this whole thing is so dependent on making sure we get that bottom-up input, which I know has just happened in such a beautiful way here in the Middle Tennessee region. But that is really the thing we can never forget. If we are not inclusive of this process, and we try to wag a finger in someone's face and tell them what to do, if you have a teenager or ever was a teenager, that doesn't work. So we want to make sure that we are providing that toolkit, providing those best practices, those resources. I love the scenario idea, just telling people this is what will happen if you do these things, this is what will happen if you do these things, and letting them understand this is about their life and about their quality of life. Then we're going to have people joining us in this whole venture of building that wonderful bridge so that the others can cross over it. So I thank you for all the great input. I'll tell you what, I've got some more things. We have our Sustainable Tourism Summit spawned many mini summits across the state for the last couple of years in conjunction with the Department of Environment Conservation, and we're going to continue those. We've also done webinars because we have found when we use this approach, it's been very, very, it definitely takes root, and then the Hospitality Association just surprises us with the great stuff they come up with. They now actually have a certification program in place that they're unrolling. And I'm just very proud of the tourism industry, but I know we need to make it real with them and make sure we're not messing with their livelihoods unless we have a good reason. Okay.
Complex issues. We are very fortunate in our region to have a leadership base which will be able to impact those and to cope with those complex issues. The greatest capital we have in our region is leadership. That's more important than money, almost more important than resources, but leadership is our most important piece of capital we have in our region. I'd like to thank our panel, and I think they deserve our appreciation. We had planned for some Q&A time, but we're behind schedule. I know these guys want to take a break. I'm anxious to get back and hear from our federal panel and their ideas and how we can find ways to coordinate what we're doing here with them and hear Mayor Dean's call to action for us. It was fabulous, starting with the creation of the Mayor's Caucus. And I know that we will have that same opportunity here in 10 minutes if you could return at about 4:15. Thank you.